So I was asking her to come on this session to maybe chat with me and see, if she has anything interesting that she want to comment about the book, right? And so again, everyone here, if you are seeing this session, I assume that you downloaded the book and also read some part of the book, right? And if you did find it interesting and you want to hear the story behind the pages that I have, and that's what I'm going to do in this session, yeah, to introduce some of the things behind the book, right? So maybe I let Candice say a couple of things, if she has something that she want to start with.
Yes. I really want to mention, but first of all, in order to talk about the book, I need to mention my funny habit when I read a book. See, I'm someone who likes to buy books, all right, and in my cabinet, my bookshelf, I have many books that I have not read, but I really intend to read them. So the reason is because I take very long to read a book. So when I read a book, right, and I find that wow, the description is so nice, I will turn turn back the page and read again one more time. And sometimes I try to stop myself from doing that. I go several pages, but still cannot resist. I'll go backwards. So when I downloaded your book on Kindle, so this is the part. So when I flip, even at page 3, it says there's nothing to read, really. You see, but you don't read. So that really captured my attention. All right. And I read immediately the whole book very quickly. And I love that it's very visual, of course, it's about presentation. And page 7, you see, I still cannot resist. Page 7, I read a few times because I really like the way it's written, even though it's in very simple words, but it says it's a different kind of book, no real chapters, no rules, fluid from any angle. And then sticky ideas create stickiness. So it's like I know you for quite some time, but finally it just dawned on me why your company is Sticky S.P.Y. So before that, it just didn't, yeah, I just didn't realize. And I like the fact that you said start reading from any page you like, no destination, but it's a journey and experience. So it's really a great experience for me, I must say.
Okay, great. Thank you, Candice, for those comments and for you to share your experience of reading the book with everyone here, right? And so I hope everyone here who has read the book also felt the same way, that the book itself is actually being designed so that it is easy for everyone to carry around, because a lot of us sometimes need to do impromptu presentation and need to think about ideas for the presentation as we build our slides. And that is a handy book. It's small enough to just keep it in anywhere, bring it around with you. And also I make sure that I use a lot of pictures, right? So that it is captivating, it is exciting, and you don't have a lot of things to read, but you actually see. So one of the chapter that says that there's nothing really much to read here. It's actually a blank page, right? It's a blank page, and I put just a sentence to say that, don't look for anything, just keep your mind blank, right? So that new ideas can flow in, and that's what happens in the book. I wanted the book to give everyone who presents new ideas, that you could like use, to start your presentations. So one of the things that in one of the pages that I talk about, which I will go in a little bit in depth later on, is that you have to break the rules, right? You have to break the rules. You cannot follow the rules of PowerPoint, because if you use the PowerPoint template very often, you will end up having very boring slides. And so that is one of the idea behind, one of the pages that I will talk about it later on. So anyone have any questions before I begin? You could actually write on the chat. Write it on the chat, or you could actually unmute yourself and talk. This whole thing is a very casual thing, so it's nothing formal. Yeah, and if you turn on your video, I can see you. That's very good.
Hi, Tian. I have a question. This is Eunice. For people who are in the training industry where they need to put up a lot of slides with a lot of content, which requires step what do you call that, sequential points that need to be covered through the lecture or presentation. It is going to, how do we reconcile having slides like yours, which actually is very good, it really captures attention, but at the same time we need to cover a lot of content and facts, and we need to put those facts out in sequential order, so that they don't miss the gist of what is to be learned. So how do you present those slides in an interesting manner without having to go and put in so many bullet points?
Okay, so one of the things that I realize is that in the teaching environment, I also teach courses, right? I teach for the last 12 years already. Okay, one of the things that that I realized that many of us who are in the teaching profession tend to just duplicate the textbook. Whatever notes that you're going to give the student, is the same thing that you put on your slides. I think for presentation, that is not very effective, right? One of the more effective way is to rethink about the content. So in the presentation part, you want to ensure that the slide itself capture the essence of the learning, right? So if you have like formulas and you have certain points that you want to bring across, yes, you can actually put it on the slide, but not list down everything on one slide. Okay, right? So you want to bring the student into a journey. You can actually come up with story, come up with case study that relates to the content, right? And during the lecture itself, the student actually enjoy it because they find it able to apply, the idea, the concept into a case, a real life kind of situation, right? And then if they need to know the details, the background and things like that, then they already have the notes that they have been given to them, when they enroll for the course or things like that, right? Right. So I guess that's the way that I would approach it. That's the way that I would approach it, and I would say, if I have a chapter that I need a lesson that I need to give, I will look at the chapter and say, okay, what is the most important thing here that they really need to know, that I really need to show them, right? Yeah. Of course, to a teacher, to a lecturer, we say, oh, everything is important. But what is it that you want the student to capture at that moment, at that 30 minutes lecture that you are going to give them? What is it that you want them to really remember and really understand? The rest of the thing is the student's job to go and read it up, right? And that's how I would approach it. Yeah. And we are looking at things like adult learning here, right? And when you are adult and you learn kind of things, it's not just a lecture, it's kind of hybrid learning. You learn from videos, you learn from things that you read, and you come to the lecture, you come to the presentation to understand the key of the content. So one of the things that I want to actually bring out in the book is that this one, right? I have a page here on page 8 that says thinking on my feet. And this is very important because in presentation, whether it's a lecture or is just a presentation at a seminar or conference, very often we need to internalize the subject, right? So I always tell people that, when you want to present things that you are confident with, that you know about the subject, you need to know a little bit in depth on what you're talking about. Otherwise, if you don't prepare enough, then you might get questions that you don't know how to respond, right? That you don't know how to respond itself. And so, as I was thinking about the book, I thought that this was a very interesting picture because I took this picture while I was on a business trip. Before I was doing this, I was working with a multinational company, right? And I was in a business trip in Boston, right? And it was snowing then. It was snowing and it was very cold. That's why I was wearing a trench coat there and walking around on the on the snow, right, on the snow. And I was looking down on my feet and was like, okay, I think this is a very interesting angle. And I had a camera that with me, and I took a photo. Actually, I took a couple of photos, with this situation here. And I kept it for quite a long time, right? I kept it in my album for quite a long time. And as I was writing the book, I thought that what picture should I use to represent this? And as I flipped through my collection, I found this picture, right? And I thought that, wow, it is actually quite an interesting picture that I can use it on a page of the book, right? And put the title Thinking on My Feet. And that's very true. When you are presenting, you need to be always on your feet, right? And thinking on your feet because, depending on the situation, depending on the audience that you have, you might get different questions, and you might need to address different things related to the topic of the presentation, right? And moving on after doing this, there are many things that came into my mind when I was designing the book, right? I would say that I design the book rather than I write the book, because there's not a lot of text to read in the book, right? And most of that are visuals and exciting things. And so let me move very quickly to the next image on the book, which is this one, right? This is also a photo that I took. In fact, a lot of the photographs that you see in the book, a lot of the pictures and images, I actually photographed them myself, right? I photographed them myself. And because I used to carry with me a camera wherever I go, that was the time before the smartphone have very good camera. Right? I actually carry a pocket camera, something like a 5 megapixel, 8 megapixel camera, right? A real camera. And so I go around taking photos like that. And this photo is taken in Singapore, in one of the streets. I was walking, crossing the road, and I find this symbol quite interesting. This sign quite interesting. So I just, randomly just took a photo. And when I was writing the book, there was this part that I want to talk about choices, right? Which direction should you take, if you are presenting? If you are designing slides for your presentation, which direction do you take? Do you want to be able to end up being a great presenter? Or do you want to end up being some presentation that are just normal, right? And so that is a decision that I think everyone who build slides and who stand out to present need to decide, right? I also understand that a lot of time in our work, presentation is not the key thing. We have other jobs, right? Maybe we are in purchasing, maybe we are in HR, maybe we are in administration and things like that, in marketing. But definitely there is no department called presentation, right? And so that is not the key job of everybody, right? And when you are being asked to present, it becomes a chore. It's, again, I have to think about what to present, what to talk about, and it actually takes time away from my actual work. And that is what a lot of presenters feel. A lot of people who actually present felt, right? And so this image or this page is to encourage them, to think beyond presentation as a chore, right? It has to be a decision that you want to make, because when your presentation is effective, when your presentation is powerful, it actually does attract opportunities, right? It does attract opportunities for future things, right? It's not just that moment when you present, right? When your presentation is good, you get noticed, right? People notice you. People know that, wow, you are a good communicator. You are able to articulate things very visually and very effectively. And that is what you want to get to. And once people notice that, definitely sometimes you get to be the talk of the town because your presentation is really good. People get wowed from your presentation and they're very impressed, right? And if you're in an organization, maybe you might get promotion, for example. And if you're in sales, maybe you get more sales, because people like what you shared with them. And that is the idea that I want to implant to the readers who is actually at this chapter. You need to make a decision. You need to make a choice whether how should your presentation end up to be. Right. Good. I hope that keeps you thinking. I hope that keeps your mind rolling as I tell you the story behind the images that I've selected for the chapters. So let's bring me to another page, right? This is on page 15 of the book, Persuasive. Whenever we put things, whenever we put an image or information on the slide, it has to be persuasive. One of the things that I talk in the book about in the book is that, information by itself is very complicated. So if we use to put complex information onto the slide, most likely people cannot understand, because usually the audience might be the first time looking at or listening to you, right? And so it might not be something that they can understand very quickly. So in a presentation, sometimes you do not have a lot of time. Your time might be just 20 minutes, 30 minutes, very short. You need to cover a lot of things. And that's why you need to ensure that the information is simple and people believe the information that you have put on the slide. Right? So it has to be persuasive. Just like if you show an apple as a picture, people must believe that the apple is real and juicy, and so they are persuaded to take a bite. Right? They are persuaded to take a bite of that apple that they see. And that is what you want to do. In your presentation, you want to ensure that every slide has an impact and every slide is persuasive enough for your audience to believe in the information that you are presenting. Right? For the information that you're presenting. Okay. And then you might be asking, how do I get into that state? How do I get into the state of people believing in the information? So let me bring you to another page, that I wrote, which is this image that you see, okay, on page 25 of that. So if you flip onto page 25 of that book, you'll see that I have a picture of this, putting my hand up. And what am I trying to do? Right? I'm trying to stop bullets, right? I'm trying to stop bullets. And so one of the very important things that I tell people is that do not use bullet points on your slides. Do not use bullet points. But this statement is actually quite difficult for many of us who are in structured environment, who are very used to the PowerPoint template, who are very used to list down, things that want to stay in bullet points or maybe in a sequence of things in bullet points, right? And so my advice is that if you can build the whole set of presentation slides without bullet points, your presentation is going to be up a couple of levels, right? Because when you have bullet point, you tend to read the information on the slide. And every time you flash the slide, your audience also tend to read the information on the slide. When they start to read the information on the slide, they will not hear what you say. The things that you put on the slide is not for your audience to read. Right? It's for your audience to see so that they are able to kind of grasp the whole idea of what you're trying to bring across. Right? And then after that, you want them to listen to you because your stories are great stories. Your stories relate to real life examples. Your stories are captivating. And that is what you want to do. And so as I was doing this picture, doing this part of the writing, I thought of how can I illustrate the stopping of bullets? And I realized that actually I watched a movie, Matrix. So I'm sure everyone recognizes Matrix if you have watched that movie. And this is the picture that I took out from a frame of that movie, right? And of course, with the magic of Photoshop, I'm able to, wear a dark glasses, just take out my face, Photoshop my face and put it on that image. right? And that's how I got to be Keanu Reeves, right? In this picture itself. Um, and so I put that picture on the page and thought it was interesting. I actually like this page very much because I'm so impressed with myself being able to do the Photoshop and put myself on this scene, right? On this scene of the matrix and stopping bullets. And that's the key idea, when you do your presentation slide, if you can, try not to use bullet point at all, right? At all. But if you can't, then reduce it lah. Don't use too many bullet points, right? And with that means that, brings me to another idea that I have, which is this one, wanted for breaking the rules. And so I tell people that, when you are building high impact presentations, you want to build slides for high impact presentations, you need to break the rules, right? You need to break the rules of PowerPoint, right? When PowerPoint is a tool that we always use for presentation. I'm sure, 90% of you or 95% of you here today uses PowerPoint for your presentation, right? And the minute you bring out PowerPoint will ask you, please select a template. Right? And as you select a template, you realize that the template have a few things, right? First is that it has a title. It has a placeholder for the title, and it says, key your title here. Type in your title here, right? And as you type in the title, which is text, and at the bottom there's this put in your body text, right? And then you start typing. And if every slide is kind of following the template, then it creates a lot of bullet points, right? It creates a lot of text. So that's not very helpful, right? And so I tell people that, break the rules. Break the rules of the PowerPoint template. Instead of using the template, throw it away and start from a blank page. Then in a blank page, you would be able to then decide what kind of information should goes on the slide. It can be a keyword. It can be a few words that is very captivating. It can be a picture. It can be a few words connecting into a diagram, right? And so we all believe that, a pictures is worth 1,000 words. Pictures can be very exciting. Diagram can be very exciting. So make your slide visual rather than something that has too many texts, right? And as I wanted to illustrate this, I found a photograph. I did not take this photo, right? I found this photo from an image library, and I thought, oh, this is kind of really interesting. It stand out a lot because of the color of the hair, very colorful. This interesting lady actually got herself into jail behind the bars, right? And I thought she's kind of, very suitable for this page, right? Wanted for breaking the rules, right? And so it is okay to break the rules, as long as you're breaking the rules for PowerPoint, right? Don't go breaking real rules. In Singapore, if you break the rules, you get into trouble. You get into a lot of trouble, right? You get into jail, thrown in jail, you get fined. And of course, today, you go out, wear a mask, okay? Don't break the rule of, social distancing and things like that.
Hi, Kente. I wanted to ask you about not using bullet points. Okay, that's really unconventional. I feel that would probably apply more to maybe coaching, training. But what about teaching when, that really is a lot of content to cover? And, without the bullet points, I think it makes it quite difficult for us and for the students. What have you got to say with it? So I think we may need to adapt, like, to different scenarios.
Yes, you need to adapt. So what I could suggest, if you are really teaching and you really need a lot of things, you can break your slides into two parts. Okay, the first part is trying to engage the student, trying to give the students a reason to stay with you, throughout your whole lecture, right? And so maybe you can spend like 10 minutes. Let's say your lecture is 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes. Then you say, okay, let me spend the 10 minutes really focus on telling them, giving them experience or showing slides that are simple and captivating that relates to like my next 20 minutes of my lecture, right? So maybe tell them stories, show them pictures of certain things that is related to what they're going to learn later on, right? And once you have get that off the way, then you know that you have the students' attention, right? Then you can say, okay, what I explained earlier on, let's move into a little bit more detail, right? And then that is where you can say, come up with slides which have more detail, right? And walk them through some of the formulas or some of the description of what they need to go back and learn more. So my suggestion is that if you have a 3 hours lecture, break it up into 30 minutes parts, right? Break it up into 30 minutes parts. And of course, every hour you give them a break, right? You give them a break. So what you have is that 30 minutes parts, first 10 minutes of the 30 minutes is where you tell stories. It's where you have slides that are simple, slides that they can remember. They don't have to go back and refer and read, right? And then after that, you go into more details. That is where you say, okay, I need to put in more details on the slide. And of course, the next part of the slide will not be sticky. So I always call this, are your slides sticky enough? Right? That means it's the information, or will it stick to your audience after they get out of your lecture or after they get out of your presentation?
I think the story bit is very interesting, starting with a story. I remember going for presentations and, when the speaker starts with a story, that really sticks.
Definitely. So it has been proven. It has been proven that story sticks, images sticks, things that are simple sticks.
Question. So can I say that your thinking of presentation to so-called break the rules, is it something more like those tech talks where, a bit like this presentation where you have the background as the virtual, so imagine you're on the stage, so you're more like the speaker, like last time Steve Jobs selling the Apple and Apple launch. Is it that kind of a direction in which very few words or notes, because it's not academic from the start, it's more of capturing people's attention and to getting a certain idea or concept across to your audiences? Is that the direction that we are?
I think every presentation should be a sales pitch, right? Whether is it academic or is it in a meeting, in academic, what are you trying to do? You are trying to sell the idea, right? Yeah. And if the idea doesn't stick, you did not make the sale, right? You are only just dumping information to the students. Okay, this is a very interesting slide because I realized that in presentation, we don't only deal with text, right? We deal with a lot of numbers, especially in corporate presentation, right? We have a lot of data, we have a lot of matrix, KPIs, and tons of it, especially in monthly departmental meeting or head of department are always to show what is the performance and things like that. And we deal with a lot of numbers. Okay. And you realize those slides with numbers are just slides with numbers, right? And even they convert the numbers into diagrams, into charts. The charts are also very complicated. And very often, anything that the presenter throw on the screen, the audience actually cannot see one. Right? Because the numbers are so small and there are so many numbers, it's like 100 over numbers on the slide. So the whole idea here that I use this picture is I'm trying to illustrate that, numbers, tons of numbers that you put on your slide is just like looking at pebbles at the riverbed. Right? Because there are tiny things, so many, and you actually cannot see which is which. Right? Everything is so jumbled up. And so in this part of the segment, I'm just trying to say that even with numbers, you need to ensure that you know what or which number is the right number to show. Many of us say that, okay, I have KPIs and it trend from January to December, all the 12 months. And what they do is that they throw all the 12 months data that they capture from the database, right, and throw it on the slide or build it with a chart, right? What are they trying to show? So it really depends on the purpose of what you are trying to show. Are you trying to show a trend? Are you trying to show that the performance of a specific month? And so that's very important, because if the presenter do not understand what he's trying to communicate, then it's very difficult for the management, okay, in this case, the audience is the management, right, to make that decision. So if you're trying to get something out of the management, you are not able to convince the audience or convince the management or persuade them that says that, well, this month we actually did very well because of something, right? And so if you want to highlight a specific KPI, I think the most important part is to ensure that you know which month to highlight. And if that month is supposed to be something that you want to talk about, show it big on the slide, right? So the whole idea here is that same thing, you know, we are trying to move away from bullet points. We are trying to move away from the PowerPoint template. Even with numbers, we need to show numbers very clearly. And that actually brings me to another page, which is very related, which I want to say, whatever you do, make sure it is visible. Show things big, it's visible. So your slide content must be visible. If your audience cannot see what you put on the slide, it's as good as not showing them anything, right? The slide must be visible. But what happens with this image is that I'm trying to illustrate that if you are presenting, right, don't hide behind the slide. Okay, this is also a photo that I took many years ago. You know, I used to have breakfast during the weekend. I go to East Coast, you know, a lot of years ago, many years ago, there are a lot of restaurants, you know, along the service lane in East Coast, right, where you can sit outside, enjoy the breeze, the sea breeze, look at the sea, look at people cycle by, running by, skating by, and things like that. So usually on a Sunday morning, I'll usually go there. You know, I used to do skating, right, high-speed skating. And I also carry my camera with me. And after the skate, I will sit down and enjoy breakfast with my friends. And very often I see like squirrel jumping here and there, you know, on the trees, on the fence. And there was this time that I see so many squirrels and decided to take a picture of that squirrel, right? I took a lot of it and I found that this was quite suitable for this page that I want to talk about, because the squirrel is hiding behind the light, you know, that is shining there. So it reminds me that, you know, in presentation, as the presenter, we need to be confident of what we are presenting, right? Only then that the audience will believe us. Only then when we are able to present confidently, we are able to persuade the audience. And so don't hide behind the light. Don't hide behind your slides. A lot of us like to show the slide with many complicated things and hoping that the focus is for the audience to read the information on the slide and not focus on us, right? But what we want to do actually is to have the audience focus on us, because our expression, our story makes the whole experience real, right? And the other thing what I'm trying to do here is also, we are now presenting things virtually, right? And then many times when we present on Zoom, we are very small on one side. So I don't like that. I don't like me, myself, to be so small on a corner, you know, where my slide is take the center stage and you know, people don't see me. That's why I'm finding ways to see how I can put myself in front of the slide. So every time I present, I'm actually the main focus right in front of the slide. And I believe that that is what all presentation to be. If you want to present, make sure that you are visible. Make sure your content is visible. Make sure your personality is visible. You know, so that people remember you. Let's pause for a while. Let's see if there's any questions from the audience here. Any questions or anything that make you curious?
Candice, about the pictures, other than those pictures that you personally took yourself, those other visuals that you downloaded, most of them are from, I mean, I suppose some are from Canva, is it? any other sites? And are there copyright issues that we should be worried about? And where do we get these visuals? Because I notice your visuals are very powerful and very unique. So if you could share with us where we can get this.
Okay. Besides most of the visuals that I took myself, there is no copyright issue because it's my visuals. Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And those that is not taken by myself, I actually bought them. Lately, this couple of years, there's also a lot of free sites, image site that allows you to download royalty-free images. That means you don't have to pay anything. The photographer actually is willing to share their work with everyone. Okay, and one of the sites that I can recommend, which I use also very often, is Persuasive. Okay, so these are the two sites that I frequent. If I felt very poor and I do not want to buy images. And they're actually really good in images, right? Very high impact as well. Best presentation is a presentation without slides. I always believe that if you can present without slide with your story that will captivate and get your audience to imagine or paint that picture in their mind with just your words and just your story, that is very good. Yeah. But most of us don't have that ability. Not every one of us is born a great presenter. And so we need slides to help us, right? And if we use bad slides, we look bad. So what we want to do is that what we can control is ensure that we use good slides. Slides that are powerful, slides that is able to help us articulate the stories. If you try to show or present technical information without slides, I think it's very difficult for the audience to follow you, right? And so sometimes you might need slides, depending on what you are talking. If I'm camera shy and I prefer to present and show the slides without showing my face, is that okay? I think it's okay. It's generally okay. Again, that is what I want to ask you. You have a decision to make. What is your decision? If you so decide that you don't want to show a face, that's fine. Nobody is forcing you. But if you decide that you want to be powerful along with the slide, then I think showing yourself is better. Okay, let me finish up the few other slides. Okay, so this slide, this slide is I wanted to. So as I was writing this page, I wanted to tell people that when you build your presentation, you must have control. Don't use somebody else's slide to present because you don't know why they put those information there, right? And a lot of time you go until then you don't know what to say, and you start reading from the slides, and that's not good. So when you build your slides, you need to be in control of, and you need to decide yourself what needs to go on the slide. And I took this analogy from building a sandwich, right? I remember that every time I go to Subway, I don't buy sandwich off the shelf. I always customize my sandwich the way I like it, right? And I always tell the waiter, I only want ham, tomato, cheese, egg, lettuce, mayonnaise on my quack deck sandwich and nothing else, right? And so I was trying to look for a picture from the library, out there that show a delicious sandwich that is multi-deck. I couldn't find one. So this picture is something that I took, my own. I built the sandwich by myself for the photography, right? And it actually took me quite a long time to capture this picture because I know what I want, right? I wanted a multi-deck sandwich. I bought the bread. I have my bread. I bought the lettuce I put in the fridge. I have the tomato, which is in the fridge fresh. I have my ham in the fridge. And I have my egg that I fry, right? And make it fresh. So I set up everything nicely. I put my camera nicely. And then I make the sandwich. Took out the things from the fridge, stack it up very nicely, put it there, adjust the lighting, put my camera angle so that I know where I am positioning, how I want it captured. after everything is ready, when I began to snap the photograph, the sandwich toppled. Okay. Then I said, oh my God, I've done it so nicely and the sandwich toppled. Then I was wondering why. Why did it topple? I tried to put it back on, but it couldn't stay on. It just dropped again. Then I realized that, oh, because the bread became soft, right? Why did it become soft? Because I took out the lettuce, the ham, the tomato straight from the fridge, and it was moist, right? And after stacking up, while I was adjusting the camera angle and the lighting, you know, the moisture get into the bread, and the bread softened and the whole thing toppled. So I said, okay, let's put that aside. Let's start over again. So this time I took out the thing from the fridge. I let it warm up first. You know, take the paper and dry up all the moist. I start over again, right? And then I make sure I cook the egg, fry the scrambled egg, put it on top nicely. It toppled again. Then I said, how can it be? Because I actually ensure all the moisture is gone. Then I realized one thing. I did not wait for the egg to cool down. You know, as I fried the egg, it has steam, right? Hot. Right? Hot mixed with the cool things, the bread, it moistens the bread again and it toppled. So finally I got it right and I'm able to get this photograph the way I like it for the book. So guess what I had lunch on that day? It's all sandwiches for lunch, right? I had a lot of sandwiches for lunch. And that is how I took this picture. And that is what I want to tell everyone, that, you know, if you do your slides, you must be in control of what goes on your slide so that you can be 110% confident because the content is yours. You know how to explain the content.
I think Tiantik, there was a question on by Joseph. What do you think of using a mind map to do presentation?
You can use a mind map, but make sure that your mind map is simple, right? Sometimes people get carried away from the mind map, right? You have something start in the middle, and you start to branch out, and your branch become very complicated, right? And you put a lot of information there, and then you just throw that whole thing onto the slide. Right? So if you have a complicated mind map, just like a branch on a tree with a lot of leaves, it's the same as having a lot of bullet points. People do not know which part you are talking about. People cannot find the information when they look at your slide. Right? So if you intend to use a mind map, use a simple mind map. You know, as you talk through, you can change the slide and show another part of the mind map. So the whole idea here is, again, remember that what I say, if people cannot see your information on the slide, it's as good as not showing anything on the slide. Let me finish up the last page. Okay, the last page that I want to share with you, what is your story, right? So like you all believe that story is very powerful, right? Story is very powerful. So if you can start your presentation with a story. And this image that I use here is also another image that I took myself, You know, 10 years ago, I actually wrote this book 10 years ago, a decade ago, right? And this book was actually used in a lot of my coaching, right? A lot of my coaching and a lot of my corporate classes that I teach. And this book was actually used then. And at that time, my daughter was about like maybe 12 years old, right? 10, 12 years old. And she was very mischievous, right? Every time we go for lunch, for food, she will order things, and she will play with the food. And this is one of the dessert that we ordered. It's a ginkgo nut dessert. And she took one of the nut. And then, you know, when we are young, you try to be very creative, right? So she drew something like a head. Yeah, a person with the little hair with eyes and mouth. So I thought, oh, okay, that was interesting. So I asked her to hold it on so I could take a photo of it, right? And so when I was writing this book, I thought that, wow, this image is a good story, you know, and everybody has a story to tell. And so I use this image for this part of the book that says, you know, you have to start your presentation with a story. What is your story? Right? Think about a story when you are starting your presentation. And that is very important. That would make your presentation very exciting and very captivating. Actually, there are a lot more stories in the book with the other pages, right? But for the allocate of time, for the time purpose, I can only talk about so many things, right? That is also one wonderful things that I can do, you know, with this device that I have. You know, I can actually change the way my background. I can change to a background that is something like that, right? I can change to a background that is something like that and put myself in the middle, right? So this is very useful when you are presenting live. You know, you want a virtual background to have something, and that's very good as well, right? I can also do things like that if I want to say, okay, this is my contact. You know, I can do that, or I can put myself into a studio, my studio, that you can see there. Right? If I've done with it, I can also just change back to my slides, and I can make myself small. If I don't want to get in the way of the slide, I can make myself bigger, right? Or at a different size that I want, right? And that's what I can do with this device itself. And that's why it's so powerful. And I use this device a lot for my presentation and for my teaching, right? For my teaching, I do a lot of corporate classes. Nowadays, all is done on Zoom, right? And that's why this is very useful if you are presenting in Zoom and you are teaching like weekly kind of thing. This is a fantastic device. Yes, I have a course. You know, if I have a course on this that shows you how to configure the device, and the course also, I will give you the template that I have, you know, the configuration that I have in the course, so that you can just download and use it the way I use it.
Then they want a YouTube channel also. You can give the link.
Okay, good. YouTube channel. There you go. You can actually join my Facebook group as well. The group's Ideas by Sticky S.P.Y is a closed group, right? It's a private group, and so sometimes I put in interesting things that I think about inside there. So if you want, you could follow. And of course, every week I will have a video. I try to come up with a video about certain things, all related to presentation. All related to presentation, and I actually upload to my YouTube channel. Just this week, I upload one video talking about how I got into Amazon and become the best seller. So I in that video, I lay out a couple of steps that I took to ensure that when I launch my book in Amazon, you know, I will immediately get the bestseller title, right? And so that's the video that I talk about. So you can actually take a look. It's quite interesting.
Dende, I think you should
Yes.
answer this last question, which I think is important, you know, because I'm also waiting. Any
Okay,
sequel
what was
to
the
your
last
book?
question?
Any sequel to your
Any
book?
sequel to my book? Okay, I have this book called Spinning Ideas. Okay, this is the second book that I wrote after the first book, Sticky Presentations. Okay, this Spinning Ideas is a book completely about slide design. So the book is all about slide design. Okay, I haven't made this book. I have intention to make this book into an online book, but I haven't got there yet. But this book is available in the bookstore as a printed book.
Okay, great to know. Thank you.